So here we are, back for opening the clay and creating the floor of our cylinder. I should mention that it's a good time in between centering the clay and opening it to kind of stand up, stretch for a minute, and wash your hands off a little bit. It's a nice break. You've done the hard work now, the centering, getting that big mass of clay in the middle of this wheel. Take a breather, wash hands off, and here's a little pro tip for you. When you have to scrape your hands off, do it up on the top. A lot of people scrape their hands off down here and then put their leg up against it, and you'll leave with big clay streaks all over the insides of your pants leg. So get used to scraping it off up there, and you'll have a little bit cleaner experience. Okay, we're going to be in the opening position now, where we need to get this form to open up. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, re-wet my hands. There's a couple different schools of thought on opening, probably more than a couple. There's probably eight or nine different ways that I've seen people open clay. One way is to put your thumbs in the center and just let the clay coast underneath your fingers. So it has to be wet. You can see my fingers are just resting. And then start to push down on the inside of the form. Alright? If you're too far back, you're going to get a little island in the middle. And if you're too far forward, it's just going to kill it. Alright? You don't want to be north of the center. I like to go to the center and then move slightly south of the center towards 6 o'clock. Okay? But you can push with your thumbs. I've also seen people hand over hand like this and then push down into the center. I've seen people take their fingers and push down like this. Okay? Watch a bunch of videos and try them all. Try the ways that other people do it. My technique for this is both thumbs and go just a little bit south of the center. You might experience this where the clay starts to flake off on your thumb. It's just getting a little too dry. That dries up real quick. You're making a lot of contact with the clay. So put a little bit of water in. Don't like flood it, but put a little bit of water in there. Okay? Your elbows have to be locked on your legs. This is the part where it gets off center the most, because people just float their arms up here. Where are your arms going? I don't know. If they're locked in to your hips and you're kind of resting on the outside of the clay, your thumbs are going to be very stable. And it'll be very hard to move you. Alright? Those legs locked onto the side of the wheel. Alright? So, how far down do you go? Well, if you hit this, you've gone too far. And now you're going to start over. Alright? If you stay too far up, you have to trim that off eventually. So you don't want to go too far up. There is one reliable method that all beginners should learn how to use, and that is this method with the needle tool. What you're going to do is take your needle tool and you're going to poke it in the middle. Alright? Then you are going to slide your hand, starting with your middle finger, down the needle tool until it hits the clay. Can you see that? I'll move my fingers out of the way. Now grab the needle without moving your middle finger and lift up. You should be at about 4 o'clock, everybody. You should be at about the midpoint. Have half an inch. This is, probably an inch long here. You should be at about the midpoint. I've seen a lot of people put it in and then try to find where the watermark is. It's not a brownie. It's not a cake. You can't stick a toothpick in it to see if it's done. You got to put that needle tool in, slide your finger down until it hits the clay. Don't move anything, and lift the needle tool up. The end of your finger to the end of the needle tool is how deep the bottom is. So the idea is to keep it that deep. That's a perfect thickness. Of course it's perfect. I just threw it, right? Okay. But I just put a bunch of holes in my piece. Don't worry, those are going to disappear by the time you're done. Alright? Just a side note here. Everything goes from more to less when you're working on the wheel. You start off with a ton of water. You splash it, you're getting the whole thing wet. It's crazy. You use less and less and less water. You start off going pretty fast. You start to back off less and less and less speed. You start off with total contact with the clay, and as you get towards the end, less and less and less till it's just fingertips. Alright, so think of everything as starting out with a lot and ending with a very little. Alright, so let's get back at it. We've got our clay open. So we're going to reduce the speed a little bit. We don't want to be going full bore here, not even as fast as we were. We're going to spin it, go a little bit slower. You can see if I mess with the wheel here, you can see how fast it's going. I don't know if it's that apparent on the camera. So now I'm going to wet the clay just a little bit. I'm not going to flood it like this. I hear a lot of people sitting there with a swimming pool in the middle. Don't do that. That's not necessary. All you want to do is wet the clay a little bit. And now we're going to show you how to create the floor of your cylinder. Okay? You're going to put your right hand just gliding on the clay. Okay? Your left hand is going to go on top of your right hand. Okay? Keep your thumb in, thumb out, it's up to you. And you're going to take these fingers and pull towards your outside hand. So down in the middle, don't pull up because you're not going to get a very good floor, and don't push down because you're going to end up hitting the wheel head. You want to focus on this motion, is pulling back until you're about that far away. Okay? So I'm starting right in the middle. I'm kind of squeezing with my thumb on the back of my hand for support. You'll notice that the clay starts to get grippy and it starts to pull on your hand a little bit. Just slowly come off the clay and add a little bit of water to it. Alright, some people even take a little bit of water on their hands, just like that. And that's all you gotta do. Okay? Just gonna dry up a little bit of the excess here. Alright, so can you see now the floor is clearly defined. It's not just a U shape anymore. Alright, we actually have a floor in there and a splat, even with the wheel head. Hopefully it's that ½ inch because I started from the middle and I pulled straight back. Now some people like to go center with their thumbs and then pull with their thumbs out towards the sides. Now you can do that too. Watch some of the other videos opening the form. Alright? So next step is probably the one that is overlooked the most, and that is compression of the floor. This clay in the bottom here is going to see the least amount of compression, and that means it's not going to see any of the force that you're putting on the walls, the force that you're going to put on the rim. This is going to be largely ignored. And if you ignore it now, you're going to get something called S-cracks. And S-cracks happen because of uncompressed floors or using too much water in the base, uneven drying. There's all sorts of things that can cause S-cracks. But let's not have it be this one thing that we didn't do. So I'm going to hold my hand. I'm always going for 2 angles of support. My elbows are always locked on my legs. And I'm going to start in the middle. And I'm going to slowly move outward until I get into the corner. I'm pushing down a little bit. A little bit. It's called compression, but you don't want to dig into the floor. Alright, if you've got big chunks coming off the bottom, add a little bit of water, just sprinkle a little bit of water in the bottom, and come back at it. Pad of your finger, I want you to count to 5. And I really want you to dig this edge, this little corner of your finger here, into the wall. What I'm trying to do is get a L shape, okay? Straight out and up for my wall, okay? Is that pretty evident from here? So I'm really coming in and really digging that finger into the side and then count to 5 coming back in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really get in that corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back to center. How many times should you do that? I think about 3 times. As many as you cone it. And that'll ensure that you fill in all the holes that you checked the bottom with. And it will also prevent S-cracks, cracks in the floor due to non-compression. Don't see a lot online about that, but I find that I get less S-cracks when I do good compression of the floor. Okay? So that's the end of opening the clay and creating the floor. This is the shape that you should have, nice rounded top, no points on the top. If you have any points on the top, just take your sponge and just kind of press back down on that wall. I call this like a donut shape. You should have a donut that's not full of water. Okay? That is the end of this part. See you for the next part, which is wall pulls, everyone's favorite.